Baltimore Police Department. I was a lieutenant colonel. But I went to my commissioner and I told him, I said, look, I said, this is what I'm going to do. This is why I'm going to do it. He was actually at Ed Totley's funeral. So he knew. And maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe that's why he didn't, you know, push back that hard or whatever. Because, I don't know, maybe I would have lost it or something. But, and I served at his pleasure. He could terminate me at any time and I'd have no recourse. But he said, I appreciate you letting me know so he doesn't get caught blindsided. And he said, go ahead and do it. That commissioner today has a syndicated radio show in Baltimore, and he agrees completely with Lee, and he's having on his show a couple of times. So these are some of the different dynamics, but overall, the rank and file doing the work in the streets, they don't want that violent environment to work in and day out, you know, of these gun-toting drug dealers. They don't want that. And they, you know what, and they know that most of the people who are addicted to drugs that they are arresting, they know that they don't belong in prison, that they need on-demand treatment, but we don't have the money for on-demand treatment because it's tied up in policing, courts, and corrections. You know, all the way in the back.
Have you had a chance to read that report from Cato on the legalization there in Portugal, and
yeah,
how that's really working? And I encourage anyone in the room to go there. It's a wonderful report. It's just a 10-year look at how the law has been very effective in handling drugs, and they actually have had a decrease in all of their drug usage.
Yeah, I'll speak briefly on that. Maybe this is where we can wrap it up. It's up to them now, of course. Portugal, 12 years ago, decriminalized possession of all drugs. And just so you know the difference between decriminalization and legalization, to decriminalize means that in Portugal, it's a 10-day supply. So you can have a 10-day supply of any drug on you. There's no criminal, it's not a criminal violation, okay? It's still illegal to sell, it's still illegal to manufacture, okay? So you still have somewhat of a illicit trade underground, of course you do. To legalize means that, like alcohol, manufacture, transportation, distribution, and then some sort of retail marketplace. So that's legalization across the board. So in Portugal, they decriminalized possession of all drugs. So what's happened? What are the results? The report that my friend back there was referring to that you can find on Cato's website. New cases of AIDS, HIV for intravenous drug users has decreased by 71%. 71%. Let's talk about overdose deaths. Does anybody know roughly how many overdose deaths we have in this country every year? How many thousands? Yeah, it's more than that now because, you know, opiates and other things come in, but they've had a 52% reduction in overdose deaths in that period. That's tens of thousands of lives that would be saved here if we had that type of result. That's critical, that's important. What's also important? Teenage drug use, right? For our school-age kids in Portugal, middle school, high school, between a 22 and 25% reduction in use. There's no real scientific study to figure that out or why that happens, but I can tell you why it happens as a parent. Because it's no longer a sign of rebellion. I mean, you know, it's, gee, nobody's gonna get mad at me, you know? And so this is a psychological thing. You know, in the Netherlands, where their marijuana use for teenagers is significantly lower than here, you know, and they have the pot coffee shops, you know, where older people go to use marijuana. And they've done surveys of the young people in the Netherlands as to why they don't use, and they say many times the kids report that, well, it's something that the older people do. Any young people, do you want to do what old people do? No, you invent new ways. You guys even came up with a new language, you know, texting, and that us older people don't understand. But you know what? When we were young, we came up with a new language. So, you know, there's that dynamic. So yeah, great things out of Portugal. And you know, there's some other things that have been tried in different countries around the world, like Switzerland, with how they manage those addicted to heroin and the success that they're having there through heroin maintenance clinics. Great stuff. Great stuff. So, that's it.
I have time for one more question.
One more question? Yes, sir.
If you're being prosecuted and you know that the prosecutor or the judge has stock in the private prison industry, would they be forced to recuse themselves?
That's a good question. The question is, if you've been charged and you're going to go to court, and either the prosecutor or the judge has stock in the private prison industry, right? Should they, you know, be recused from? Should they remove themselves from either being in the position of the prosecutor or the judge for your case? Personally, I think so. I mean, that's a conflict of interest if you ask me. Personally, I think it's an ethical problem, even if it's not tied to a case. For a prosecutor, for a police officer, a prosecutor, a judge, or anyone working in corrections to have that. You know, parole and probation, for instance, because they have the power, you know, to send you back if you're in parole, if you're out on parole, and your parole agent has the power to send you back, you know, for dirty urine or whatever. So, yeah, I think it's a big issue ethically, and I don't think it should be permitted. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. What a great speaker, huh? You don't get to hear that perspective every time. It seems like in the law enforcement community, those who speak out against our issue are lauded and able to do so. And from what I hear, majority of police actually are kind of silently with us, but they end up getting, you know, in trouble whenever they speak out. So hopefully that is all changing, and I think it is all changing as we can see. So thank you, Neill. That was great.
Thank you, ma'am.
We've got about 10 minutes before the next panel is to start. So if people want to get some coffee, there's sodas back there. We've got some vitamin water too, so for the healthy folks in there. And we'll be doing a panel called Medical Marijuana or Legalization for Everyone. So it should be interesting. So see you guys in a couple minutes.